It's a very nice evening here at Gamston Wood, June the 11th today, and a little bit breezy through the tops of the trees, as you might be able to see and hear. But just here where I'm going to set up the trap for this evening, it seems sheltered enough, and the breeze is forecasted to die down a little bit during the course of the night. But I'm here for at least a couple of hours. We'll see how it goes. And because we're now into June, we're getting into the peak of the moth trapping season, and so we shouldn't be short of species here. I do like coming to Gamston Wood. It's a place Dillis and I trapped at a couple of times a number of years ago, and I've started trapping again since last year, and it's proved to be an excellent place with species like Clifton nonpareil, and I think dotted chestnut we turned up here in the spring. So I think that it's time to have a steady unpack of the car, get set up and wait for this sky to darken. Well, we're off and running here at Gamston Wood at 2200 hours or 10 o'clock in old money. What will we get? What awaits us? Again, it's that usual thing, the excitement, the not knowing of just what's going to turn up. We shall see in the next few hours. You may be able to just make out the breezes still going through the tops of the trees, but there's nothing down here at all. Very, very pleasant. It is a warm night. The humidity is going to increase as we go through the night apparently, and another nice day tomorrow, although there is a chance of some showers tomorrow. Thunderstorms going up the west of the country tonight. It's perfect conditions for migration, for moths coming in from the continent. Whether we get anything like that this evening, I don't know, but the few moths that are in are common swift, and there's a couple of green carpets as well. Bactra lanceolana, which is a moth you'd expect here because there's lots of sort of sedges and rushes here. And that's about it so far, but it's very early days. Well, it's not very often that one of these sits and poses long enough to get even 5 seconds of footage. This is a peach blossom. This is certainly a moth which displays itself better in the daytime, but we can't really grumble because they don't settle down much. It's not very often that I do get the chance to show one of these. But what a fabulous moth it is. I remember catching this as a youngster in my garden. It was the first attempt that I had at trying to attract moths to a light, and it was just an old table lamp with the shade taken off, put on a little table and stood in front of a projector screen. This was the only moth that turned up, but I was pleased with it, and I still am now, because this is an absolutely beautiful moth. It really is. It's common, more so in woodland, but it will turn up quite regularly in urban gardens or suburban gardens. One of the nicest moths we have, an absolute beauty when fresh. So that's peach blossom, and a developing list is becoming larger and larger as the sky finally darkens. Well, it's a steady continuation of moths coming in. Not particularly a great deal coming in, to be honest. We're on to about 29 species, just looking at the list, and there's not really anything of any note on that list so far, but it is early days, but very nice conditions, very pleasant temperature wise. Temperatures not going anywhere near single figures this evening. Altogether it's ideal conditions for moth trapping, but at the moment nothing really to report or warrant a great deal of report. I will just go through the list a little bit and pick a few things out. Well, I can't really, because it's all stuff you've seen before. New for the year is common emerald. Common emerald is beautiful. I like green moths anyway, and this is a very fresh common emerald that's been in and gone, as common emeralds often do. But there's decent numbers of micro moths as well too, actually. Notocelia roberana, and in fact 3 species of Notocelia, including Udmaniana, otherwise known as bramble shoot moth, and Notocelia trimaculana. A nice trio. Bramble shoot moth is very nice, but I'll put pictures in as I've gone along, as you'll have found out. So we await something exciting. There's not, say, big numbers of moths coming in by any means. I think the stuff's still finding its feet, and the sky is just about dark by the looks of what I can see up through the trees now. And you can hear the latest train to come hurtling past. Well, plenty of moths around the light. Most of what you can see of the larger, paler moths are all light emeralds. Good night for them so far. In fact, I think there's more in than what I've got written down. Mottle's Beauty is an all the moth which is really on the wing now. Very attractively marked moth, Mottle's Beauty, and quite similar to Willow Beauty, but more defined and more of a beauty than Willow Beauty, to be honest. Willow Beauty just tends to be quite dull and grey. And we're on to the second page of the notebook now, so that means we're over 33 species, but only just. Still early days and still a very nice night, and from what I can hear, or can't hear rather, that breeze has all but stopped. Well, coming up to 2 hours of this trapping session. And it's been quite a funny trapping session, to be honest. There are moths, plenty of moths. The variety is not what I'd hoped, but saying that, once you get to midnight, all hell can break loose, and that's when you often get different species coming in, species that you wouldn't have got during the early part of the night. It's surprising how often that happens, where you can go all night without a particular species coming in, and then all of a sudden within a matter of minutes, sometimes seconds, 2 or 3 of a particular species will suddenly drop in and more will follow. Haven't had a hawk moth so far, but it's been one of those trapping sessions so far where it's been remarkable in its, well, unremarkableness, so to speak. But we do have some nice moths in. We've got a couple of small phoenix that are in, one particularly worn actually, but they are still flying. In fact, I think there is a third one knocking around here. In fact, I can see 3 from here. And small phoenix is a beautifully marked moth. Brimstones is 1 or 2 brimstones knocking about. Say light emerald is one of the commonest moths in, and it's always nice to see. Light emerald's a beautiful moth, it really is. And anything else of note in the micro department? Yes, Epimenia falciformis, or words to that effect. One of those has come in. It's a moth that I've never really trapped much. I've trapped a couple at home, if I remember right, and had one at Green Flash, and I think that was by day. And that's a nice moth to get. Larva feeds on wild angelica, if I remember right. So that's an interesting micro. There's a couple of Udea olivalis in. Otherwise, well, the interesting thing is, shows the difference between woods. Loudwood the other night had over 100 Tortrix viridana, the green oak Tortrix. Tonight, 1. And there's oak here. That's the surprising thing. Oak, well, 10 feet away. So we'll see what else comes in. I think it's time for a cup of tea. I might even treat myself to a biscuit. But don't tell anybody. Well, here's a nice moth for the evening. Whether it's the first time this moth has occurred here at Gamston Wood, I very much doubt. I'm sure Colin Watkin may have trapped it in recent years, but this is a pale oak beauty. Very distinctive from all the other beauties, to be honest. A lot paler and more washed out looking, but although it appears pale and washed out, usually it isn't. This looks quite fresh, to be honest, but quite easy to distinguish by those 2 small circular marks on the hind wings there. The other beauties like Willow Beauty and Mottled Beauty don't have those. So it's a nice moth to get. I remember Dillis and myself trapping one of these in 2005, I think it was, at Wood at Eakrin. And it was the first Nottinghamshire record in over 100 years. And since then, it's done very well around the county. And many people are now trapping this moth in their own gardens. And indeed, I did only about a week or so ago. So that's pale oak beauty which has come in. Well, we've gone midnight, so just over 2.5 hours of this session gone. It's quite an interesting session because there's lots of moths, but most of those moths that are flying around the light at the moment and coming in are light emeralds or mottled beauties. There's good numbers of both of them, but among the good numbers of light emeralds and mottled beauties, there's also decent numbers of micro moths too, and I've got quite a good species. There's almost 20 odd species of micros alone, and among those is a moth which is turning up time and time again now, and with increasing regularity. In fact, it turned up at the last trapping session I did at Wood, and it's Loquetia labella. I've got another 2 in here this evening, and I mentioned on the last trapping video that I've probably had at least 3/4 of the county's records. Well, the percentage is probably increased now, but it must be a moth that is doing increasingly well. I've had it twice at home, here now, and certainly at Wood on a couple of occasions. So it's not all doom and gloom regarding moths. There are some species, a good number of species, which are on the increase and increasing their range, and Loquetia labella is one such species. Overall, it's been a really enjoyable session this. Not had perhaps the species variety I was hoping for, but I could stay longer than the 3 hours that are now up and get more species. But I want the moths to have that couple of hours of darkness before dawn comes. And I'm quite happy having trapped what I've trapped, nothing particularly rare or unusual. Pale oak beauty would have been a monster of a rarity, say 15, 20 years ago. But now it's becoming run-of-the-mill. And so I'm going to start and pack up, but I will be checking for anything else that's dropped in while packing up. But I have enjoyed this session and this return back to Gamston Wood. It's always a nice place to come and trap. So, time to pack up.